Welcome to Waidsum University. Today we're looking at network security, and the first chapter in this network security is modern network security threats. Modern network security threats. So without much ado, let's begin. Now, first of all, what's the purpose of security? Why do we have to secure our networks? First of all, to protect the assets. Okay, to protect assets. Now, what type of assets are we talking about? Are we talking about just money, or we're talking what type of assets are we talking about? We're talking about the data and resources we have in our organization. Okay, the data and resources assets that we have in our organization. So we need to protect all these assets in order not to fall short of what we have. Okay, historically done through physical security. Before now, we physically secure our system, but today by having what we call the closed network, So a closed network is a network that prevents any hacker or any externality to gain access to the given network. It prevents any externality to have access to the given network. So this is what we used to have. Okay, in the past we have a closed network like this, and to prevent any externality to this particular network. And the reason for security is to protect our data, our resources. Okay, now let's take a look at the network security components. What are the components? What are the things when we're looking at the network architectures? What are the things we need to bear in mind? What are the things we need to put together in order to secure our network? Number one is the protocols. We have to know the type of protocols that are being used, ICMP, the different types of protocol, as the simple network management protocol, the TCP and the UDP. All of this, we need to know what type of protocols that needs to be used with our network, that are available with our network. So we need to know the simple transfer file protocol, TFP, the TFP transfer file protocols. We need to know all of this type of protocol. We need to know the different protocols that are being used in a network. So this is the first component that we need to know when we are designing or when we are algorithming or putting together our network. Another one we need to know is what types of technologies that are being used with these protocols. What type of technology that the network support that are being used with these protocols. What type of technology that is being used. So we need to organize it. We need to put this together, the technology that is to be used. Then we need to look at the devices. What type of device is used? Like technology, we have OSPF technology, and so many other type of technology that is being used. Is that okay? We have the ROTP technologies, OSCP technology there. We have the CDMAs technology, different technologies that are being used. So we need to know which type of technology we are using in our network. Then after that, we need to look at the devices. Okay, the third part is to look at the devices that are being used in the network. What devices that we need to use in our network? Now, this device could include routers, switches, hubs, computers, servers, clients, workstations, and all of these things, the wire, the cable, and all of these devices that we use in a network. So we need to understand that in order to plan a good network security, we need to understand all of this. And we need to know the tools, what type of tools that is being used, either to prevent or to mitigate against any externality or potential vulnerability in a network. Then, the last but not the least, we need to look at is the technology to secure the data and mitigate threat. What technology can we put in place? Can we develop or technique? Okay, in this case, technique, like the methods. What methods we can use to secure the data and mitigate threat? Any threat, that will disrupt our system. What techniques can we use to protect the data? Okay, now why we concerned about the network security? Why are we so concerned about network security? Because we really need to be very concerned about network security. Why? Reasons be that we need to be able to be ahead, one step ahead of the unintentional hackers. Whatever the hacker is thinking, you need to be a step ahead of the hackers. Otherwise, you'll be vulnerable. Because they have their own technology and they have their own way, they have their own programming. That they're always attacking. They're always looking for any vulnerable system that it can devour on. So we need to be a step ahead of their plans. We need to master the code that they use in hacking into networks so that we'll be able to prevent our network from such attack. We need to test run ourselves as if we want to hack ourselves and see if there's any loopholes or vulnerability that we can close. Okay. And then another thing why we're so concerned about network security is to attempt to prevent potential attacks, to be able to prevent potential attack by those who are always out there trying to create denial of service, trying to create viruses, Trojan horse, worms, and all of these things to disrupt your system. So we need to be a step ahead, create a potential attack to prevent potential attack from happening, and while minimizing the effects of real-time attacks. Okay, so these are the basic concern about network. Now let's take a look at networks today. Networks today are so vulnerable. Why are they so vulnerable? Because today we have what we call the personal computers. We have LAN local area networks. We have the wide world of internet. Like you have what you call the WAN, the world of internet, intranet, extranet. All of this we have. So there's so many gateways and loophole coming from the fact that we interconnect systems from one place to another, and so on and so forth. And with the wireless system that we have, the vulnerability certainly exists in our system today. So the network of today is more open. It's more open. Unlike when we used to have in the past, when we have the closed network, and that was a bit difficult for any outsider, intruder to find access, to gain access into our network. But today is more open because there's so many different connectivity. Okay, so you can see these are potential hackers. These are dangerous hackers. These are hackers. They're trying to penetrate into these networks, these various networks. Okay, so we should be careful. Now let's take a look at the threats that are available today in a network. Okay, since we've seen the network of today, what are the threats? We have about 4 primary classes of threats in our network security. We have 4 types of threat in our network security. One is the unstructured threat. The second one is the structured threat. The third one is external threat, and the fourth one is internal threat. So you can actually get threat within the organization. Okay, the organization. You may have someone insider that is compromising the system network. Okay, an insider that is working with outsiders that's compromising the system network. So the outsider gain access to your network, usually through the insiders. So the insiders are called the internal threat, the outsiders are called the external threat, and then we have what we call the structured threat, and then we have the unstructured threat. Now the unstructured threat, what they try, it comes from the normal internet gateway to your system, okay? And then you see it's trying to hack this host. See, everyone tried to attack this host. So at the end of the day, to be compromised because all threat. Then within the same organization, so there's a staff among your employees that is also trying to hack or trying to create a denial of service or create Trojan horse to this host or whatever worm or viruses to compromise this entire host. So you have external one. The external one, they always try very hard to break your firewalls and your antiviruses. They break your your firewalls and your antiviruses. And then you have the structured threat. The structured threat is within your network and also trying to attack this host. So at the end of the day, there's so many attacks on the host. Now let's talk about the network security models. What type of models? In this course, we'll be looking at 3 models. The first one is called the open security model. The second one is the restrictive security model, and the third one is the closed security models. So we're going to talk about this in terms of the enterprise network and in terms of security. Okay, and also in terms of application and security. Now, this is the security policy that helps to shape which model that is applicable that you're going to use as an organization. And these security policies will cover topics such as your enterprise, that's your organization, the network you're using in the organization, and the security you're providing to your organization. So your security policies will help to create something that will be very useful to your network. Is that okay? To the system as a whole. Then in terms of applications and in terms of security itself. Now let's take a look at the first one, which is the open security model. The open security model, it permits everything that's not explicitly denied. Anything that is not denied, explicitly denied, this model allows it. Okay, the open security model allows anything that is not explicitly denied. And why it's usable is because it's easy to configure and administer. It's very easy to configure. This model is easy to the open system model is easy to configure and administer, and it's easy for network users also. Network user to use this model, and its security cost is very less. It's not so much costly. Okay. Then the second one is the restrictive security model. Now this model, it's a combination of specific permissions and specific restrictions in the system. So there's specific permission and restriction. So it doesn't allow everything to go through. So that's why it's called restrictive security model. Now here, it's more difficult to configure the system and also more difficult to administer it. And then this model also is more difficult for network user. The restrictive security model is more difficult for users, and it's also more expensive compared to the open security model. Now the third model is the closed security model. The closed security model, it's that which is not explicitly permitted is denied. Anything that is not explicitly permitted will be denied. Okay, in the closed security model. Anything that is not expressly or explicitly permitted will be denied by this model. Okay, then here is very, very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. Maximum security. This one guarantees maximum security. It's very, very difficult. Most difficult to configure and also to administer. Very difficult to configure it and to use it, to administer it. Most difficult for network users. Okay. And then security cost, most expensive. Out of the three, is the most expensive to use. Now let's take a look at another subsection, which is the evolutions of network security. How did we all come about now seeking for network security? How did they all started? Okay. But before we talk about how it started, let's take a look at the need for network security over the years. We take a look down from 1980 to 2000. Okay, you can see that the knowledge, the technical knowledge required to prevent threat is going down, keep going down. The threat itself continue to become more sophisticated. See, it's rising. The threat is this line of graph. Okay, the threat keep rising, but the knowledge that is required, the technical knowledge required to implement attack diminishes. The technical knowledge keep diminishing, but the threat itself keep rising. Okay, so this area is the hacking section. Okay, this area is the hacking section. You have password guessing, hacker. You used to, the whole security architecture. The problem used to be, or what they used to do used to be just to guess the password. Okay, just to guess the password. Later, they created self-replicating code like the worms or viruses. Self-replicating code was created to destroy networks. And then they moved to the third stage called the password cracking. They started cracking password. And then they moved to another stage, the fourth stage. They started exploiting known vulnerability, started looking for vulnerability. Okay? And then after that, they moved to backdoors. Started looking for backdoors, okay, like loopholes in your system. And then they went to sweepers, and then it grew to denial of service, it grew to stiff diagnostic, and packet forging, spoofing. So you can see how the threat keep growing, stage after stage after stage. but the knowledge keeps going down. Okay, the technical knowledge for the attack keeps going down. This area is the hacky section. Okay, so you can see from 1980 the computer threat keep going up, but the knowledge to implement hacking keeps going down. Technical knowledge remains small, while the threat itself keep going. The attackers too keep going. Sophistication keep getting sophisticated. Okay. Now let's move on quickly. Now this brings us to in the past, like the history now. What happened in the year 2001? The Code Red was launched. The Code Red worm was created in the year 2001, and it was a simple denial of service (DOS), simple denial of service attack, and it was released in July 19, 2001. And the attack was on web servers, and these web servers were global web servers. So they affected over 350,000 host computers. Okay, and as a result of that, millions of people or users were affected. Millions of people were affected. Millions of users were. So you can look at the continent of Oceania, like Australia. You can see like Asia, the Asia part of the world. The African, only the North Africa suffer this, and then like we have the Europe, and then we have the Americans. They also suffer from this Code Red problem in 2001. So now, what is Code Red? If we say Code Red was, this is when we begin to experience very severe network issue. So what is Code Red in this regard? Code Red is deface web pages. What it does, it will deface web pages. It will disrupt access to the affected servers and local network. To host the server, making them to be very slow, or to even deny them from usual functionality. So network professionals, they responded slowly to the system patches, which only exacerbated the problems. Okay, so Code Red, what did it do? The Code Red worm, it's a worm actually. It's a kind of malicious software. Okay, it's a worm attempted to connect to TCP port 80. So this worm was trying to connect with TCP. You know, TCP is a connection-oriented service. Okay, so it's attempted to connect to the TCP port 80 on a randomly chosen host. And once this is found, once they find the TCP port 80, then they begin to progress to other hosts. Upon successful connection to port 80, the attacking host sends a crafted HTTP GET request. So it will send HTTP GET request to the victim, attempting to exploit a buffer overflow in the NDC service. So this was what they do. The Code Red, first of all, trying to connect to TCP port 80, and once that is done, then they will initiate the host with a HTTP GET request. And once it's done, then it begins to spread randomly to other computers. Now, what did it do? What did the Code Red do? If the exploit was successful, then the worm began executing the victim's host. It began to do what it's intended for, to execute on the victim's host and either deny the service or begin to replicate itself and begin to cause delete or corrupted files and all of these corrupted files and all of these problems, and then hack, meaning you are hacked. So the hackers have access to your system and your network. So actual worm activity on the compromised machine was time sensitive, and different activities occur based on the date of the system clock. So the different activities begin to happen based on the date. Day one was on the 19th. And what happens on the 19th in July 2001, that the affected host will attempt to connect to TCP port 80 of randomly chosen IP addresses in order to further propagate the worm. Okay, remember this Code Red is a worm. So Day 20 was to 27. What this one did was a packet flooded denial of service, start to cause denial of service attack, and will be launched against a particular fixed IP address. So between the day 20 to 27, what happened on that same month of July in 2001 was that packet flooding causes denial of service, meaning you'll be denied from accessing your own system by hackers, by group of hackers. So this happened from 20 to 27. Then on the 28th, day 28th, end of the month, which was end of the month, the worm sweeps no active connections, so total denial of service. So the worm sweeps around the network, and then you are cut off from the network, your own network, in your own organization. So this code red, this was what he did in 2001. How is it stopped? How do we stop it? The worm resides entirely in the memory, right? So a simple way to stop the code red was just to reboot the machine, to reboot your computer. So once you reboot your computer, you'll be able to. But if you keep your computer running, most people, they don't reboot their system. Where they stop, the next day they just continue. When it's down, they charge. That's it. They don't shut down. So in this case, you just reboot, restart, and their code red will be gone. But before that happens, these hackers must have gained huge access to your network, right? Now, network security professional must develop and implement a security policies which includes the process to continuously keep tabs on the security adversary or any adversary or patches that is being made by this nuisance. Okay, permit us to use that word. Code red, was it a good thing? Yeah, the good part, it wasn't a good thing. The only good part of it was that it was a wake-up call to all network administrators. Like eye-opener. It was an eye-opener to network administrators. So they could see regularly the patch that is created in their system and the patches and every other vulnerabilities on their system. So if the security patches had been applied in a timely manner, the code red one will only merit a footnote in the network security history. Okay, so this was the code red, how it was being detected, and these are new threats that were coming up as at that time. Okay, now this is a new Cisco tool, and this new Cisco tool, Cisco iOS checker, to check if your system is under attack. Okay, so we can click on this link to help us see if our system is under attack. Now let's take a look to another subheading. Let's move to another subheading. We've looked at a bit of history of what happened a while ago. Now, drivers for network security. What are the drivers for network security? Before we talk about the network security in details, let's take a look at the drivers. People who have made the network security to become the bane of today's world. Like why we should be so much concerned about network security. The hackers, the different titles they had. The first one was the phreakers. The phreakers. The phreakers, the individuals that manipulate the telephone networks in order to cause it to perform a function that is normally not allowed, such as to make free long calls. So this was the first set of hackers. They used to break into telephone networks to have access to a network and make free calls as long as they can. These were in the early 90s and 2000s. Okay, so these were a set of hackers. They hack into a telephone network company and they can make free calls as long as they want. Then the second one was the spammers. The spammers, you've heard of spamwares. Okay, the spammers spam in your mailbox. They say spam. This is spam. The spammers, individuals that send large quantities of unsolicited email messages. Email messages that are confusing or to lure you into defrauding you. Okay, spammers they use viruses to take control of home computers to send out their bulk messages. They use viruses, okay, to gain access to your system, and then they can manipulate you. Another set of hackers title is the phishers. The phishers, they're individuals that use email or any other means in an attempt to trick other people into providing their own personally identifiable information. such as your credit card details, numbers, your passwords, your credit card numbers, your CVV numbers, and so on and so forth. Okay, even your medical record, they say can keep blackmailing you and so on and so forth. Okay, so these are phishers. Phishers, they use email or they also use any other means that they can use to reach you to trick you in providing all your sensitive or your personally identifiable sensitive information to them. Okay. Now let's take a look at the evolution of hacking. In the 60s, it was freakers. Okay, the freaks. That in the 60s, those who hack into telephone and then they can have free long calls for themselves. This was what was happening in the 60s. So freakers were the set of network attacks that we used to have in the 60s. Now in the 80s, we have what we call the war diaries, like war games. Then somewhere around 1988, we have the internet worms. The worms were created. The one we just talked about, like the code reds and other worms. We have the SQL spammer worm, which is very dangerous. We're going to talk about that later on. Okay. And then by 1993, the first DEF CON hacking conference was held. And then by 1995, first 5 years federal prison sentence was given to a hacker. Okay, well, someone was sentenced for 5 years in federal prison for hacking into system. By 1997, we have the Nmap released. And then by same 1997, first malicious script used by script kiddies. Okay, by 2002, the Melissa virus was created, content creator, and I think somewhere around 2000. But by 2002, the Melissa virus creator gets 20 months in jail, in prison. Okay, now security first, you have to see the first virus looks like this. The first one was like this, and the first spam mail was like this, and the first denial of service was like this. Now, first email virus. Okay, the first email virus was the Melissa virus, and it was written by David Smith and resulted in memory overflow in internet mail service. Now, actually, some of these viruses that were created first was just for fun and for prank purposes. They were not meant for to steal personally sensitive, personally identifiable information or for business. It was not meant for money, to steal money or data or whatever issue it is today. It was for fun, for prank, for capability, for knowledge base, for out of curiosity. These things were created. The Melissa virus was created out of curiosity, for prank, for fun, for self-learning, and so on and so forth. Okay. The first one also was created by Robert Morris, and he created this first internet worm with 99 lines of code. He wrote 99 lines of code. That was a lot. Okay. When the Morris worm was released, 10% of the internet system were brought to a halt. When he released the worm, 10% of the entire internet system were shut down. Okay, so these things have high implications and high impact in our system. Then the first spam. Okay, first spam, also emails, spam mails, like this Yahoo, or what you call a deceptive mail to con people. Okay, then we have what we call the first denial of service attack. I think this was created by a 50 years old boy, high school boy, I think in Canada, Montreal, Canada. Yes. The first denial of service attack was created for fun, out of fun, not like it was, want to do it to steal money, to steal data, or to steal system. No. He was playing, he was enjoying the game. He launched highly publicized denial of service attack in February 2000 against Yahoo, against Amazon.com. Remember, mind you, Amazon was just new. Dell Corporations, against E-Trade, eBay, CNN. So this young boy, secondary school boy, high school boy, was just catching fun. His name is Michael Casey. Okay? We call him the Mafia boy. Okay? So Now let's take a look at the thread driving network security today. What are the thread? What are the things that are driving the network security today? Okay. Now one of it is the increase of network attack. There's so many network attacks today, so there is need for us to secure network. So it's a driving motive for network security. Another is the increased sophistications of attack. The way system are being attacked, the sophistication is so high. So we need to create security system, network security system, to repel this compelling force. Another reason for that is driving the network security today is the increased dependence on the network. Another one is the wireless access. Another one is lack of trained personnel. So the personnel we have, they're not so trained. So we need to come up with a very secure network. And then another one is the lack of awareness. So many people are not even aware of attack, system attack, and vulnerability issues. Okay, so we need to come up with a secure system. Lack of security policies. Many networks do not even have proper security policies to protect and safeguard the system, the network, the organization, the people that are in there, and the kind of capital strong punishment for those who violate the security policies and protocols. Then also litigations also has led to the reasons. Legislations, litigations, they've all led to the reason why we need to create a strong network. Now let's go to another subsection called the malware malicious code. Okay, malware is just called malicious software. So when we say malware, we're talking about malicious software. Now let's take a look at the types of attack on a network system. The type of attack you can find in a network system. There are 4 categories of attack. The first one is called the reconnaissance attack. The second one is the access attack. Okay. The third one is malicious code. The malicious code attack is the viruses that will attack your system, the worm and the Trojan horses. The fourth one is the denial of service. You'll be cut off from your own system and you'll not get access to your own system. And the first one, let's focus on the malicious code, okay? Where we'll talk about the virus, the worm, and the Trojan horse. Now, malware, like I said, is a malicious software. Okay, this malware is derived from malicious software. Malware is derived from malicious software. That's what the name means. Okay, now malicious software is a software that is designed to infiltrate a computer without the owner's informed intent. You are not, without your consent, without your intent, without your consultation, without your knowledge, without you even knowing. So a software that is designed to infiltrate your own computer and either steal your data or watch what you're doing or even corrupt your system. So now let's take a look at examples of malware, types of malware. One is computer virus. Number one type of malware is computer virus. Another type of malware is the worms. Another type of malware is the Trojan horse, the rootkits, the backdoors. Okay, and then the one for profit is the spyware, the botnets, the keystrokes, lodgers, and dialers. Okay, so we have this type of types of malware. About 6. We have computer virus, worms, Trojan horses, okay, rootkits, backdoor, and for profit, which is spyware, botnets, keystroke, Rogers. They all fall for other profit. Now let's take a look at the profit one, which is the spyware. Spyware is strictly for profit category, meaning when the hackers launch a spyware into your system, they go to steal your data, they go to steal your money. Okay, for example, like into affiliate marketing, all the revenue you get from your affiliate marketing, they will divert them to another directory. They will divert everything to another directory. So you're going to lose. This is strictly for business. They're not playing, they're not pranking, they're not for fun. They're not just to corrupt your system. They're coming to steal what you have and sell it and get money. Okay, so when we say spyware, we're talking about a malware that is strictly for money. Okay, it's really designed for money. First of all, it will monitor a user browsing history, your web browsing, and the way you browse. It will monitor it. The first thing. Second thing, it will display or solicited advertisement. It will display or solicited advertisement that you did wish for or solicit for. They will be displayed in your system. Then the third one, it will redirect the affiliate marketing revenues that you will get to spyware creators. So it will go to them, those who send this type of thing to you. Spyware programs are generally installed by exploiting security holes. Okay, they look at your security hole, your vulnerabilities. Okay, and then they install this spyware. Okay, they sometimes installed as Trojan horse programs, such as most peer-to-peer applications. Now, why write malicious code? Why do we write malicious code? Okay, most early worms and viruses were written for what? For fun, for experiment, for development, for knowledge, for innovation, creation, inventions. And so this was what it was for. Now your programmer learning about viruses and techniques wrote them for sole purpose of their own knowledge base, right, to improve themselves. But today it's now for profit. It's now for profit. Now malicious code writing today is for profit. So today we create denial of service so that we deny those who have access or who owns the network from accessing their own network, and then we take whatever we can take for our own benefit, self-benefit. This is mainly due to the internet and broadband access. Since 2003, the majority of the virus and worms have been designed to take control of users' computers to black market exploitation. So they take control of your system and then they sell at the black market. The infected zombie computers are used to send email spams to others and create denial of service. Okay, so this is what we've seen today. Now let's take a look at the various type of malware. The first one is the virus. A virus is a malicious software that is attached to another program to execute a particular wanted function on the user's workstation. So it is software, malicious software, that like a simple virus is malicious software that is attached to another program. To be buried with another program, maybe in an email that will be sent to you. And then when you execute it in your host workstation, it will corrupt your system. Okay. Now a worm executes arbitrary codes and install copies of itself. That's replicate itself. A code will store copies of itself in infected computer's memory, which infect other hosts as well. So, but a Trojan horse is different, only in that the entire application was written to look like something else, like something that is good. It disguises. A Trojan horse is something that looks good, but in actual sense, it's coming to attack your system. Now let's still on viruses, more on viruses. Computer virus, like we said, is a malicious computer program that is executable file. It's an executable file that can copy itself and infect a computer without permission or the knowledge of the user, of the host. Without your knowledge, it will replicate itself as well. Viruses do replicate themselves, not only one. A virus can only spread from one computer to another by what? By sending it over a network as a file or as an email payload, also by carrying it on a removable medium. But let's say you use a thumb drive, a pen drive, and a thumb drive or a pen drive that has been corrupted. Once you put it in your computer, without a strong antivirus on your computer, it will corrupt your computer system. Viruses need user intervention to spread. because you will not know that there is a virus. So you would just put it in your system, may corrupt your system, except you have a very strong antivirus. Some viruses are programmed to damage the computer by damaging the programs, deleting your old files, corrupting your file, reformatting your hard disk. Okay, so they are intended to make you lost your work, to make you to delete your files and so on and so forth. So if you want to corrupt, you just spread very strong virus to a computer or to an organization. Others are not designed to do any damage, but simply to replicate themselves and perhaps make their presence known by presenting text, video, and audio messages. Some are not there to damage everything, but just to show you that they exist. Then the second types of malware is the worms. We've talked about virus. The second one is the worms. Worms are particularly dangerous type of hostile codes. They are codes that can replicate themselves and spread. Okay, they replicate themselves by independently exploiting any vulnerability in your network or system. Okay, worms usually slow down your entire network system. Okay, so it's dangerous. Worms do not need your intervention. Okay, worms do not require user participation. Can spread very fast over your entire network. So a good example of worm, apart from the code red, is the SQL slammer worms. Remember, I said we'll go to talk about it later on. So in January 2001, the SQL slammer worm slowed down the global internet traffic, okay, by causing what we call the denial of service. About over 250,000 hosts were affected in just 30 minutes, okay, across the world, in just 30 minutes. So worms are also very dangerous. Now let's take a look at the anatomy of worm. Okay. The enabling vulnerability. A worm installs itself, like it can replicate itself using an exploit vector on a vulnerable system. So you use exploit vector. A worm uses an exploit vector to replicate itself in any system that is vulnerable. Propagation, let's take a look at the worm propagation mechanism. After gaining access to the devices, a worm replicates and selects new targets. Replicates and select new targets. So this one is dangerous. Propagate in the entire network. All the computer or workstations that are connected to that network begin to feel the backlash or the bad side of this. Now let's take a look at payload. Okay, the anatomy of worm. We've talked about the enabling vulnerability and the propagation mechanism, then the payload. Once the device is infected with a worm, the attacker has gained access to the host or to the network. So he become a privileged user, and he will extend these privileges. From being a privileged user on the network, he will want to gain access to be an administrator and take over the control of your entire system. So the payload is that it progresses gradually from being a privileged user to the administrator. Okay, so now let's move to another subsection, which is the Trojan horses. Okay, the Trojan horse. This in 2009, this was the year that we had the most hacked software. Okay, this was the year that we had the most hacked software. Remember, we say Trojan horse come to you as something that is nice, but it's just disguising. It's going to destroy everything that you've ever have had. Okay, a Trojan horse is a program that appears to the user to perform a desirable function, as if it's something that is good, but in fact facilitate unauthorized access to the user's computer system. Actually, it's coming to gain an unauthorized access to your system. Trojan horse may appear to be useful or interesting programs, probably that's why you allow them, or at the very least to be harmless to the unsuspecting user, but are actually harmful when they are executed, when you allow it Trojan horse are not self-replicating. It's not like the worm or the viruses that are self-replicating, but they are dangerous as well. Okay, they are dangerous. But the difference between them and worm and virus is that they are not self-replicating. Now let's take a look at Trojan horse classification. We have the different types of Trojan horse. We have number one, the remote access Trojan horse. It enables unauthorized remote access to any network or to your computer or to your gateway. So that's the first one, remote access Trojan horse. It enables access to your system. The second one is the data sending Trojan horse. It provides the attacker with the sensitive data such as your password, your credit card details, and some useful details. Okay, the hacker will be able to access all of this. Then the third one is destructive Trojan horse. This one will corrupt your system or your files or your network, to corrupt it, or to delete your files or delete your folders and whatever you have. So it's called destructive Trojan horse. The fourth one is the proxy Trojan horse. The proxy Trojan horse actually uses the computer functions as proxy server. It will use your computer as a server to gain access to the entire network. So it will choose one host and use it as a server to disrupt the rest of the computers or workstations on the network. Then we have what we call the FTP Trojan horse. The FTP Trojan horse helps to open the port 21 security software disabler. So this one is so bad that the FTP Trojan horse will help to disable any security software that you've installed, like your firewall or your antivirus. So it will help to stop your antivirus from working. It will stop your firewalls from working. So it's very dangerous, this FTP Trojan, because if you disable your antivirus programs or your firewalls programs, it means you're super vulnerable. You're super vulnerable. So they can have access, they can deny, even you that owns the network, they can create denial of service to you and they can deny you from the entire system. Denial of service, the sixth one is the denial of service Trojan horse. This one will slow down the system or eventually halt the system, put it to a stop. Okay, you will not be able to access your system. Now let's take a look at 5 phases of virus or worm attack. The 5 phases. Virus and worm, when they attack, what are their 5 phases? The first phase is called the Prof phase. Prof phase is just the vulnerable target they've been identified with a ping scan, using what we call the ping scan. They're just trying to identify anyone that is vulnerable, that will be vulnerable, or anyone whose system is not secured. The Prof phase. Also, application scan. They use the ping scan or they use the application scan to identify any operating system or vulnerable software. So first is the target. They use ping scan to identify target. They use application scan to identify operating system and any vulnerable software. Then hackers obtain the password using social engineering, or what we call the dictionary attack, or brute force, or network sniffing. The social engineering, we're going to talk about it later on, how they will call you and tell you, oh, your system has problem. When you flow, they ask you for your details in order to help you stop what is happening to you. They will ask you for your username and password, and once you give them, finish. Social engineering also include someone calling you and asking you for your OTP, OTP that you've won something. The OTP will be sent to you now. You should read the OTP to them. They will be pretending as if they are your providers and whatever. They will call you from the bank. They'll be acting they are your banks. These are social engineering techniques. They are your banks that someone was about to, your bank is about to whatever, your account is about to whatever, your bank account is about to whatever. And then they ask you for your username and password in order to protect it for you. And banks never ask you for username and password. These are hackers that are using social engineering techniques to get your details. Okay, so this is the Prof phase. The first phase, how the hacker or what the hacker do, and what they do and how they do what they do. The second phase is the penetrate phase. They try to exploit the code. They exploit code is transferred to the vulnerable target. Now they will transfer the code because they've got it, your password, your username. They've got it. They've assessed how vulnerable you are. They send the application scan to check your operating system, the Microsoft operating system, and every other operating system you're using, the Linux. They've checked all your operating system. They've seen how vulnerable you are, and then they use the ping scan. They've used the application scan. So they know. So the next is to send a code to your system, and it's called the exploit code to the vulnerable target. And the goal is to get the target to execute the exploit code through an attack vector, such as the buffer overflow or ActiveX or common gateway interface. So all this will get viruses to your system. The third phase is the persist phase. After the attack is successfully launched in the memory, the code tries to persist on the target system. It will persist, like to remain. So the goal is to ensure that the attacker code is running and is available to the attacker even if the system reboots. That's the whole essence, that this persists. Even if you reload your system, it's still there. So the fourth one is the propagate phase. The attacker in this phase attempts to extend the attack to other targets within the network. Okay? They use the propagate vector, including the emailing copies of the attack to other systems. The last phase is paralyzed phase. This is where they damage you. This is where the actual damage takes place, and this is where they damage you, this is where they denied you, this is where they corrupt you, this is where they deny your system, your files can be erased, system can crash, information can be stolen and distributed. Okay, what we call the distributed denial of service. Okay, not just this denial of service, but distributed denial of service attack can take place in this paralyzed phase. Okay, now quickly let's look at the commonalities between the virus and the worm. Majority of these software vulnerabilities that are discovered relates to buffer overflow. Buffer overflow are usually primary conduits through which viruses, worms, and Trojan horse do their damage. So through buffer overflow, viruses and Trojan horse tends to take advantage of local root buffer overflows. A root buffer overflow is intended to attain root privileges to a system. Okay, worms such as SQL slammers and code red exploit remote root buffer overflow also. So they're doing the same, technically doing the same thing. How do you mitigate viruses and worms? How do we use what we call the antivirus? There are different types of antivirus, Lotun, Kaspersky. Okay, we have different types of antiviruses. Avast Pro antivirus, we have different types of antivirus. So you have to install antivirus in your computer and you have to put in your network. Okay, so to the part one, this is part one of our class. We're stopping here and we'll be starting part two from viruses and Trojan horse mitigation. Okay, thank you for joining us in our today's class.